Hi, this is Tina. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us here for another Joyful Connections episode. And welcome back to my special regular guest, Nalini from Chalice of Wisdom and feeltuning.com. Welcome back, Nalini.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yay. God, we were talking about shifting your perspective and then shifting what you actually perceive and how things are just not what they seem oftentimes, and how that plays out in relation to absolutely anything and everything in life. So it would be really fun if you could share a little of your perspective on the what's going on in regards to the common topics that everybody seems to always be interested in, money, relationships, health, career, job, all that kind of stuff. So how do we shift our perspective to have a different perception? How does it work out?
Okay. Well, it is funny because the ultimate truth that everyone actually knows is that appearances aren't real. This world is a blue screen world. Everything is an illusion. And then you start with that and don't click stop yet. Oh, I've heard this all before and it doesn't make any sense and I have to go to work now. And so, for taking time out of your busy day, everyone's days are really busy now. Even if you don't think so, energetically, inwardly, we're busy. There's a lot going on. And so step one was shifting anything. And the most prevalent topics in this world or in the societies in this world, money, which everyone projects God onto money. Project source onto money. Money is the source of all things. No, source is the source of all things, including money, which is an emblem of it. However, what good is that going to do me if I can't pay my light bill? Well, there is a way to make that happen. So let's talk about that shift. And then the thing about relationship. Well, every relationship is your relationship with source. It's an inner thing and everything mirrors that. And then there's a point where the mirror even shifts so that it's not direct. It's always been a bit like a funhouse mirror. It shows things in distortion. So it can be interestingly interpreted. But then there's a place where the mirror shifts to where it's always just what's going on inwardly. Everything outwardly is being mirrored for what's really going on with you inwardly. And again, the person with briefcase in hand right now is saying, yeah, okay, I'm going to work now. Well, yes. And there is a practical application for all this. So step one is perspective. And you just had asked, well, what's my perspective? Well, I have a little different orientation now. My ego doesn't need the kind of external validation or validation in the world that it might have used to do or that other people's do. I don't feel a need to go, make a mark in the world or anything like that. That makes me want to laugh, actually. It doesn't mean it's not okay for others, but it's just not what, that wasn't what I was here to do. But then there are ways where the ego gets a hold of these things. So when we talk about a perspective shift, we're really talking about how is your ego and the mind's interweaving with your ego, creating a reality for you, because perception creates reality. Perspective creates reality. Okay, it does. And you say, well, did I create, this is the classic argument. Well, did I create the company where I work? Well, no, literally speaking, someone else or someone else did that, but you are creating your experience of being there and having that and doing the things you do. You have a responsibility. So the tricky part is shifting perception first. Okay. How do you shift perception? You alter your perspective. So to alter your perspective, it's like you think about looking at things from a higher perspective. They say, well, what's the 1,000-foot view or the 20,000-foot view of this? And then things look trivial that might have seemed really up close and in your face and personal 5 minutes ago. So partly it's that. The way to shift perspective, there have been lots of teachings about it, walk in someone else's moccasins, put the shoe on the other foot, that kind of thing. Those are all expressions, colloquialisms to talk about a shift in perception. The fastest, best, and most efficient one is to stop for a second, even a nanosecond internally, because that's about the most time a lot of us have in any given day, and go directly into source, go into that inner sanctum, that field of just being at peace, filled with your essence, whatever that means for you, whatever works for you to do that. That is your widest perspective, always. You will learn to walk that all the time. It can be done. And that's the biggest perspective, to just take that moment of, oh, it's there. It never leaves you. There's a place, you could say it's here, you could say, but it's everywhere all the time. But there's a place where you experience that every moment. Go there. Let that shift your perspective. Let it show you. Stop asking it, well, I want to perceive this way. That's a limitation. It's actually, you're creating a limitation by saying that. I want to experience this. Okay, that's different. You would like to have an experience in this world. Okay. But if you alter your perspective to source's perspective of that, you may or may not still want it, one. And two, the experience of it will be so much more optimal than what your filtered, smaller perspective would have created. So first, widen, shift your perspective. What that does is it shifts your perceptual array. It shifts your perception, your perceptive abilities, so that you can see more through source's eyes. You see more through the eyes of the Great Mother or God, or whatever you see that. And that's very different. That's essence to essence communicating with life, not just with another being. I was just looking at an article, a praying mantis showed up on my screen the other day, and so I was looking up mantis medicine, because I was, well, all right, what's the significance of that? Not so much it's a sign, because it probably is, but not that, but just, let's look up what those energies are that just arrived right here. And there was something that a friend of mine, Sharon Callahan, actually said in one of her articles, which was that I looked in the eye of the being, and I saw the eye of God, and we communicated through that essence. And that expression, that essence to essence communication, is how a perceptual shift actually occurs. Is that you're communicating at the essence level with yourself, with your situation, even with your job, even with the commuter train or anything. If you're feeling essence to essence at the source level, you're communicating clearly, truly, and you've broadened your perception. Now, if someone had told me that decades ago when I was using commuter trains, I would have said, I don't want to communicate essence to essence with the creeps on this train, They probably felt that way about me. So, but it's not that. It's not that, because you're going into the source essence. So it actually is very practical, because then you are buffered, shielded, you are in a resonance that absolutely most suits you, and then so are they. So it's accepting that, like, so are they. That essence seems to suit them, and this works for me. So you being in that essence shifts that perception. When your perception shifts, you create more openings. When you create more openings, you create more opportunities and synchronicities by being open to them. Were they always there? Yes. But you see them. Did you know to let yourself be navigated this way? No, because your perception hadn't broadened. And then as your perspective broadens and your perception changes, then that's how things manifest for you. That's how manifestation changes happen. So if you broaden your perspective, if you are in that peace and plenty and all of that joy feeling, your money will shift without you having actually taken specific steps to make it do that. Will you have taken steps to help create the openings? Well, sure, you do have to have a bank account, It's like you're operating a slot machine. You have to have the bucket to pick the things up in, or you can't, it's like, but things will start to happen in a very, very different way. Or like with relating, because everyone always wants to know about their relationship. And it's like, well, the ultimate is, it's your relationship to source. So if you alter your perspective of, well, let me look at this through, you could say, through the eyes of the Great Mother or of God or of Source. Let me look at this in a new way. Your perception opens up. It shifts everything. All the little pixels go dance around and shift so that it looks different, is how your mind perceives it. No, you're different, and you're seeing more of what is actually truly there. You're seeing through illusion. And then when you see truly whatever the truth is in that moment, because it shifts all the time. The only absolute truth is source, and no one of us can perceive that absolutely. We have chosen a filtered experience in an incarnation. Not all filters are bad. Most of them create experience. Sorry, a lot of information in the short amount of time. But as we broaden that and we move from this place, it creates options. You know, it's like, yes, anything is possible. What is actually best for you? You know, if you confront someone with, well, anything's possible, and they go, you know, it's like you get the deer in headlights factor because you don't know what to do with that. And the fear will take over, like, what if I make a mistake? Well, if you start to take a step into something that is absolutely non-optimal for you in this cycle, and it's non-optimal for you is the key, the energy will flatline, the tap will be turned off, it will not feel good. You will know. So don't walk down that path anymore. Stop taking those steps. Go into that field, you know, become that broader opening, and it will show you a different way. Even the commuter train or going into your job can feel completely different. And the funny thing is that usually happens. Like, you walk into your job one day. I had this happen to me over and over, and I was a consultant, so I shifted, you know, companies that I worked in a lot. But just at the moment where you think, this actually feels good, this is really good, this feels optimal, I can be here, the contract will end or the job will end and you need to go someplace else, because it's a completion. It's like, oh, I learned how to do that in this situation. That was what I was here to learn to do. Is everyone here to learn to do that in every situation? Yes. Does that mean you have to have challenges or hard situations or pain? No. No, you do not require pain to have gain. You do not require difficulty. It was the way the old cycle worked. This one doesn't. This is what I'm choosing energetically: the joy, the peace, the calm, the fulfillment, which is really what we're all looking for with the whole money and love and career and health thing. Or the health, like, thank you that my perception is that this body, or these bodies are healthy and fit and well. And let yourself rest in that energy as much as you can. Stay in that as, you know, many moments as you can out of every single day and before you're sleeping and everything, and it will manifest. You know, and the body has its cycles in this physical world. You know, it may need to go through its physical cycling if you understand how organs replenish themselves and how cells turn over, just because that's how things have been set up in this world. And if you really rest in that, things will shift. And this is not to say to not go and, you know, do the medical things you need to do, because, you know, but this really will shift things. So it's perspective first is, oh, instead of looking at this through the eyes of my filters, my limitations, my ego, my problem, it's a pretty small opening. Why did I look at it? Let's ask Source to show me the wider perspective, or the one that it's most available today. And even if you can only manage this much, it's, and your perception shifts. And so the openings, the opportunities, the synchronicities, the completions are available to you that wouldn't have been if you're still looking through this little.
Yeah. Do you know, I noticed something interesting over the last few years. I think that many people, myself included, have had this programming or conditioning belief that if you really care about someone or something, then it seems to be accompanied by worrying. You know, the more that you worry about someone, the more it shows that you care. And that's so interesting, because tying that into how so many people, you know, money equals worry, and therefore if they care about someone, it's like there's this entanglement between worry and care, which completely zaps the joy out of either of the situations. And so stripping that and then realizing, ditch the worry, allow yourself to show you're caring through how heart-opening something is, and let that shift the experience. But that seems so ingrained. It's been fascinating.
It is very ingrained. And one of the ways to shift that, it's exactly what you were just saying, but look at your love is definitions. You know, love is fill in the blank. Love is, well, I need to worry about them, or parenting. That's a whole thing. Like, I'm best for them. Really? You know, in certain situations where the child is growing, you know, you probably do know better, but it just, in terms of how the world works and what's safe and what isn't, and how to function in a body on the planet, of course, you know, the little body needs to learn that. But I've had that lesson taught to me in spades, so to speak, with different people, different situations, where Source actually knocked me on my bum in my office one day and said, "Do you really mean to tell me that you can take better care of this person than I can?" Flash of light, and I went, "Oh, I think not." Backpedaling it like, you know. And the person that I had been so worried about, and I had been hosing this person down with light, and angsting about the situation, because it was a pretty deep puddle that this person had gotten themselves into. And when I backpedaled that way and said, "Okay, I'm turning it all over to you. It's up to you. Wrap the person up. Hold them in your field. I'm lifting my perception back." Within 14 days, every single situation in that person's life had changed. That was
amazing. Oh, yeah.
Wasn't, they got themselves into it, but, it was my perspective, my perception for me was the problem. Everything had resolved itself one way or another. And that has happened, several times, to the point where when we equate love with worrying, or love with fussing, or love with smothering, the smothering aspect of mothering, it's no, because each of us, each being here, bipedal or not, are here to learn a form of what's called self-reliance, but it's reliance on the source. It's capital self-reliance, but not your higher self, not the higher spiritualized ego, but source dependence, source reliance, to rely on that inner source within all of us that knows what to do, knows how to do it, knows how to function, and isn't going to tell our minds, because our minds would mess it up. So it's trusting that. So yeah, that's really deeply ingrained, is, oh, that means I have to worry. Well, it means that the best thing that you can do for that being is to just do that. Say, okay, Source, wrap that being up with your light, with whatever they need. Give them whatever they need. And I'm just adding my wish to that, because you're part of Source. I'm adding my prayer, my wish, whatever that they receive all the light they need, and then back off. And it isn't an abdication. It isn't, laissez-faire. It isn't, that sort of unattached, oh, well, they'll all be fine. It's not that at all. It's a mix of compassion, which is a cool emotion, and dispassion, which is the knowing that Source has it all well in hand. And if there's a moment when, like, the child stumbles in front of you, grab their hand. Don't let them hit their little head on the curb. That's different. But when it's the fussing thing, it's like, no. The best thing you can do for someone or a situation is turn it over to Source. Thank you that this is handled. Thank you that there's so much light flowing through this that it will all resolve exactly as it needs to for each being. Thank you that is so. Be certain of it and let it go.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then that is shifting the perspective. And therefore what you see will shift, huh?
Yes, Source's perspective.
Beautiful.
Allowing the experience. And also, if we all really knew how to truly allow, and we came in to be programmed not to, we came programmed to sort of, go through all these hoops and things that we went through in the last cycle. But if we really knew how to allow all of that, things would be very different for all of us. Things would really be very different for all of us, and will be. We're creating a new experience on this world. Or different, and it's all about change the perspective first. It changes perception, that changes manifestation.
Beautiful. Yum. Yeah. So shifting the perspective shifts your perception, and that changes your experience of what your reality is. I think that was a really good reminder, because you mentioned I think one of the old spiritual hammering, you create your reality, and therefore all the guilt and the shame that's been hammered into people. My God. But when you say, you create your experience of reality, that is a big shift in perception and perspective as well, and totally feels empowering. Whereas the other old way is feeling like, you should be doing this or you should not be doing that. That's not very empowering at all.
That's not very empowering at all. And the true empowerment, it's interesting because some people do a very simplistic way of this. They'll say, like, well, did I create the tree? Well, no, Source and the tree created the tree. That other, that's someone else's creation and experience. You're creating your experience of it. And what you can do is just appreciate it and appreciate the miracle that tree is. I mean, it's an external way of starting to appreciate internally the miracle that you are. Mm-hmm. These bodies, how they create from a single cell, how this manifests, that's a miracle. Mm. Life itself, physical life on a physical world, a surface world, there aren't that many of them, is miraculous. And, I hear people say, well, that's not very practical. I can't walk around going, oh, it's a miracle. And my take on that is, well, if you did, everything would improve for you. Including your day-to-day business and all those very serious things that you feel you have to do, and probably do. Business has a place in this world, and it helps keep your mind focused and not on a lot of distractions. Distraction is one of the biggest issues with perspective and perception, is you get distracted into all these little things, and you aren't able to hold that. So that's one of the main things. If you sweep the distractions away, focusing on something helps to do that.
Beautiful. And for that, with the sport, I think the beautiful field tuning resonators that you have, and fieldtuning.com, and offerings that are available on the Chalice of Wisdom, they're just really helpful. So, for anyone watching and listening, if you'd like some support with that, go check that out. Yeah, so go to fieldtuning.com or look at chaliceofwisdom.com and find some beautiful support tools there to help with shifting the perspective and thereby the experience. And I think that the more that each of us make that our priority, to really make sure that our energy is completely aligned and vibrating at the most optimal reflection of who we are, and then we come together with each other, what a different world we'll create together, huh?
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love these conversations. Thanks for being here, Nalini. And for everyone here, if you have any questions or suggestions or any interest topics that you would like to hear more about, then be sure to write in, and then we can take that into our Joyful Connections episodes. And we look forward to sharing more with you. So until we meet again, go forth. Let joy be your guide to a life that is worth waking up for every day. And until the next time, many joyful blessings.